Hello, and thank you for tuning in to our Secondary English and Language Arts PARCC Test Design and Scoring mini-webinar series. This webinar focuses on the PARCC task generation models. In a previous webinar, we reviewed the structure of PARCC's master claim, whether or not students are on track for college and career readiness, major claims of reading and writing, and subclaims for reading literary texts, reading informational texts, vocabulary, written expression, and language usage. In a previous webinar, we also learned how PARCC's high-level assessment blueprints provide a bird's-eye view of the assessment, how many points can be earned on each unit, and for what subclaim those points can be earned. Before we dive into the task generation models today, it's important to note that PARCC relies on an evidence-centered design in order to make its master claim of whether or not students are on track for college and career readiness. In order to support its claim, PARCC gathers evidence, and tasks are designed to elicit specific evidence from students in support of these claims. We know that there are 3 performance tasks on the ELA Literacy PARCC assessment: a literary analysis task, a research simulation task, and a narrative writing task. These tasks are designed to elicit specific evidence from students that can support the master claim of whether or not they are on track for college and career readiness. Okay, now we are ready to take a look at the PARCC task generation models. The ELA Literacy Task Generation Models guide the development of the 3 performance-based tasks. There are actually several versions or forms for each of these tasks at each grade level. While every student in grades 3 through 8 and 10 will be given just 1 literary analysis task, 1 research simulation task, and 1 narrative writing task, students as a whole body will be experiencing tasks from all of these models. Each form of each task has a different focus. The task generation models include information such as the task type, the number and type of texts students will be asked to read, the standards assessed via EBSR, TECR, and PCR items, and the order in which students will be asked to complete the task. Let's start by taking a look at the 7th grade literary analysis task generation model. At the top of the task model, it identifies the focus of the particular task. In this case, we are looking at the task that focuses on analyzing point of view. We can also see that we are looking at the literary analysis task for 7th grade. The next row identifies how many texts students will be asked to read. In this case, students will be asked to read 1 extended text and 1 other text. Let's pause for a moment to note PARCC's passage lengths. PARCC has established the following word count guidelines for each grade span to inform passage selection. A text that is closer to the high end of the word count range for a listed grade band is considered an extended text. A text that is closer to the low end of a grade band is considered a short text. Okay, let's return to the 7th grade literary analysis task generation model. We know that students will be asked to read 2 texts. The next row tells us that students will be asked to respond to 1 prose constructed response item, or essay. On this particular task, the 7th grade literary analysis task that focuses on analyzing point of view, the prose constructed response item will measure the reading literature subclaim using Standard 1, which has to do with citing several pieces of evidence, and Standard 6, which has to do with how an author develops point of view. This prose constructed response also measures all writing claims, which include written expression and language usage. The next row on the task generation model identifies the number and type of EBSR and TECR items. In this case, there will be 6 EBSR and TECR items, 2 of which will measure the vocabulary subclaim, and 4 of which will measure the reading subclaim, using Standard 2, which has to do with the development of theme, Standard 3, which has to do with the interaction of story elements, and Standard 5, which has to do with how the structure of a text contributes to its meaning. So between the 1 PCR item and the 6 EBSR and TECR items, there are a total of 7 items on this particular task to which students have to respond. The final row on this task generation model provides a recipe for the assessment, or the order in which students will see the test items. In this case, students will read a text, respond to 1 vocabulary item, respond to 1 or 2 EBSR or TECR items, read another text, respond to another vocabulary item, respond to another 1 to 3 EBSR or TECR items, and finally write their essays. While each task generation model provides a whole lot of information, it is helpful to note that the recipe never changes. All literary analysis tasks in all grade levels contain 7 total items, and the order in which students see these items never changes. What does change, however, is the focus of the tasks and the standards that are assessed. For example, there are 7 forms for the 7th grade literary analysis task. Each form has a different focus. The prose constructed response items assess a different standard with each focus, and the EBSR and TECR items vary slightly with each focus. If you scroll through the middle and high school task generation models, you can see the different foci for each task, how many forms there are, and the standards that are assessed. It is worth noting that there are only 2 task generation models for the narrative writing task, and they are identical at all grade levels. It is also worth noting that the research simulation tasks incorporate history, social studies, science, and technical subject texts, and they assess the literacy standards in addition to the ELA standards. As you digest all of this information, consider how we can use the information in the task generation models as we plan instruction. Of course, the task generation models are assessment models, not instructional models, but there is still much we can learn from these models that can be applied to our instructional planning. Thank you for joining us today in this exploration of the ELA Literacy PARCC task generation models. Please continue to join us for these webinars as we refine our understanding of the design of the PARCC ELA Literacy Assessment and how it is scored. We hope that this information will be useful as you plan lessons and personalize instruction to better meet the specific needs of each of your students. Thank you.